And so I thought we would just visit on the topic of truth. And I put the sermon sections up there. I don't always do that. Sometimes I do. So as I'm talking, in case you're finding yourself going, what's the point? You can look up there and go, oh, he must be on that section. And then obviously some of the scriptures I refer to are up there as well. But what do we do with truth? You know, we are blessed. We have Christ. We have good lives. And what we do with it is simple. We're ambassadors. We're ambassadors of truth. And, you know, an embassy is just a piece of land from somewhere else that whoever occupies that land, it's theirs and they rule and they're sovereign over it. And we are ambassadors of the kingdom of God, of heaven. This isn't our home. This is our embassy. But we represent our home. We represent our homeland. The church is the embassy. The world is a foreign land. And our purpose is to bring the values, the truth of our homeland here, just like you do at an embassy, into a foreign territory. And that's emphasized in scriptures. And even in the Lord's Prayer, it tells us to do that. On earth as it is in heaven. As ambassadors of the kingdom of heaven in this foreign land, we bring that truth here on earth as it is in heaven. In short, we're here to testify to the truth. And many embassies come under attack. And we've seen that and how awful that can be. And they come under attack in the lands where they're located because the world or the culture around them doesn't want their message, doesn't want their philosophies. We've had American embassies attacked. And the church is certainly no different. As an embassy for the kingdom of God here on earth, we know that. The embassy of the church is probably attacked more than any other embassy on earth because its value system is based in truth. And the human heart typically is hostile to the truth, which is, that's just true. It is. Why though? Why is that? Why is the human heart hostile to the truth? Or why would I say that? But I think we know why, because the truth, God's truth, interferes with my desires. It's not convenient. It interferes with what Bob wants sexually in his life. It interferes with the necessary deception Karen has to employ to advance in her job. It interferes with our traditions of getting drunk to have a good time. It interferes with stealing from the cable company. It interferes with that. It interferes with my need for revenge on those who have wronged me. God's truth just gets in the way of my happiness. I mean, that's the general consensus with people that hate the truth. And that's why the human heart is hostile, because they believe the lie that it interferes. But here's the catch. If you talk to someone who lives a godly life and has God's truth, they will tell you that is a lie. That is not true. It's one of the most effective lies at ensnaring people. But God's truth actually enhances the quality of life, and it brings more abundance to it. God knows what we like. I mean, He designed us. He knows exactly what we like. All the things we like physically, you know, big meals, physical intimacy, and marriage. He knows the things that we enjoy because He designed us. Satan has invented a way to pervert everything that God has designed us to enjoy. Every need we have that He meets, Satan has created a way to pervert it. And I usually bring this up a couple times a year. You know, you have a need to eat. God gives you food, Satan gives you gluttony. You have a need, you have a thirst. God gives you drink, Satan gives you drunkenness. You get tired. God gives you rest, Satan gives you laziness. You have a sex drive. God gives you marriage, Satan gives you fornication. See, every need you have, and you have a need to know God. And there is a God, because He meets all the needs and He's there. But everything that we have a need for, He has a way to fill. Satan has a way to pervert. And before I go any further, just as the base foundation for everything I'm going to say today, when you say, what is God's truth specifically? Are you just talking about John 3:16? No, I'm talking about the whole of God's truth. God's truth it's the gospel. The truth of who Jesus Christ is, why he came and why we need him and why it's important. It's the 10 Commandments. The truth is the 10 Commandments. The truth is all the wisdom of the Bible. The truth is the principles set forth by Christ on how to live. The truth is surrendering to God and obeying God over carnal desires. Over carnal desires. What Satan gives us. It's a lie. We think that's going to be better, and it's not. It's clever. It's very well thought out. He's been watching us and working on us throughout history. Now, what people prefer to the truth, the options, that's the section I got up there to slide into first. So I said they don't like the truth, and I gave a couple examples of what people like. And I'm glad we're ending the year talking about truth, because I want everyone to have this in their heart as we march into the next year. Because no matter how good you are at a functioning Christian and how much you witness and testify and live your life through Christ, we all have spiders in our closet that we need to step on. We got to find them and get better and improve. The world offers options for everything. And we become so accustomed to having free choice. I can choose what kind of car I drive, who I marry, who I date, where I can pick anything, where I want to work. I've got this luxury of choices, who I want to be friends with, and so on. But when it comes to truth, that freedom of choice stays at the door. There is no freedom of choice with the truth. It isn't. You don't choose the truth. It exists. The truth exists. Whether people want to acknowledge it or not, it exists. And when people say, I have the truth, talking about God's truth, and you've heard me say a million times, the truth has a way of showing up to all the parties it wasn't invited to. And it does so on a regular basis. Jesus said, I am the truth. Jesus said, I am the way and the truth and the life. And then he went on to, people always, they use that line. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And they underscore that. But he emphasized it. No one comes to the Father except through me. And that's what causes Satan, people to say, oh, well, Christianity is an exclusive religion because you got to have Jesus in order to. No, it's all inclusive. It's the opposite. It's not exclusive. It's all inclusive. It's all can have Christ. There is no one excluded from that. Truth always has and always will, no matter what truth you're talking about, only have one correct answer. Spiritually, religiously, it doesn't matter what. One answer. 2 + 2 will always be 4. There is no other correct answer to that. Now, there is an infinite amount of incorrect answers. Infinite. Some of them are probably attractive. But there's only one answer that's true. Many wrong answers are decorated with appealing false promises of enjoyment. And that's why we're so willing to choose them. Isn't that weird? People will actually choose something that they hope is true to affirm desires rather than truth itself, especially if it goes against what the flesh wants. Like I said earlier, if that's not real convenient for me. And then we've got this, you're going to hear a lot about this today, this phrase about our truth. I see people a lot of your truth. You do you speak your truth. That's your truth. I think Oprah loves to say that a lot. That's your truth, or that's his or her truth. Options to the truth are wrong answers. They've been infiltrating, infecting, destroying humanity throughout time. And we're living in perhaps the most flamboyant, obnoxious, and destructive time in human history in regards to rebelling against truth. Politically, socially, morally, spiritually, we are in the middle of a revolution against truth. The world has literally written new laws to affirm a person's individual desire to rewrite truth. I know, politicians are hard to understand, and almost some of them are impossible to believe. But, we've seen over the past 15 years a relatively new culture that actually lives according to the lie that whatever you choose to identify as becomes a truth. I don't get that. And this isn't before you go right in your brain going, oh, you're anti-gay or trans or something. No, it's not. No, it's not. This topic's about truth. And truth is like the weather. Remember this saying, truth is like the weather. God invents it and we live under it. We can't change it. You can't tell me it's 85 and sunny outside when I see the thermometer say it's 17 below and there's icicles on the window, you can't force me to believe that. You want to go out and play in your shorts? Have at it. I'm not. And you can't force me to say it is sunny and 85 when I can look right at it and see that it's not. I'm not doing that. That's not going to happen. I'm staying in the house by the fire. And the world has been increasing in its volume about how sick it is of trying to bow down to this. You know, if you want to live inside a lie, that's your choice, but you will not demand that I live my life as if your delusion is a reality. And again, this isn't just about sexual preferences, because I know a lot of people go after gays. This applies to many facets of life. As ambassadors of the kingdom of heaven, we are to bring the fruit of our homeland here. And that's what the topic is about. The fruit is truth. People inventing their own truths, whether they be political, moral, social, spiritual, they're not our enemies. I mean, you look at this through the God lens, they're not even the enemies of truth. We don't treat people like they're our enemy. They're deceived. They're deceived. And the thing about being deceived is you don't know you're deceived. That's why it's called deceived. Because you don't know you're being deceived. We don't see a physical devil with horns running around whispering in ears. How do we know he's there? Because we see the results. We see the results all around us. Just turn on the news. We know he's there. Ephesians 6:12 says, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." We experience the father of lies setting up thrones all over the earth, and people lining up to get their free nuggets of fool's gold, because that's what a lie is. It's just one false version of a truth. How does he operate? How does Satan? Well, he's not like God. He's not everywhere. He's not omniscient. He's not omnipresent. He operates through thoughts, beliefs, and philosophies. He is a spiritual and mental influencer. You ever have a really rank thought and thought to yourself, man, where'd that come from? There was help. And he loves to separate people. He loves to separate people. He loves to do this. Race card. Black people don't like white people. White people don't like the black people. The Baptists hate the gays. The gays hate the Baptists because they think they hate them. And the black people hate the white people because they think the white. It's all paranoia. It's all bogus. You can start separating people into groups until they think everybody hates them for something. Or they themselves hate somebody else because they think that person hates them. This is what Satan specializes in. You can't have unity. That's what Christ wants. You have to separate people. If sex don't work, use race. If that don't work, use something else. C.S. Lewis made a point, it doesn't take much to put someone on the decline to hell. He said, why use adultery when golf will work? The path to hell is subtle and comfortable, a gradual descent. It's not a drop-off. That's why I said we don't see the devil. We can't dismiss him, though. We know he's there. If many people knew they were talking and listening to the devil, they'd turn tail and run the other way. But when people feel like they come up with this stuff on their own and their own ideas, and a genuine truth, they feel empowered. They're like, yeah, my truth. My truth. Anonymity and narcissism are Satan's chief weapons. He stays anonymous, and he influences our desires to love ourselves, and it works good. The influencer of thought, agent of chaos. That's what the Joker's called in the comics. He's called an agent of chaos. That's Satan. Every action we take in life is the result of a thought. Prior to being put in action, a thought cannot be seen, evaluated, measured, or examined in any fashion. No one knows it's there except you. Our brain is just this engine that controls this neurological system that makes these thoughts come forward into some type of an action. That's all it is. In a way of interacting with this fallen world. That's how our thoughts start. Sow a thought, reap a deed. Sow a deed, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a behavior. Sow a behavior, reap a destiny. And that's who you become. And how does the Christian interact with the fallen world? Well, I mean, this is a real easy analogy to think about how the Christian, and on the topic of truth, how the Christian interacts with a fallen world. Remember, we're an embassy. We represent the kingdom, our homeland. We're foreigners here. What do you do when you go into a dilapidated garden full of weeds and thorns and bugs and thickets? And you clean it. You begin to clean it up. That's natural. That's the first thing you do. That's what needs to be done. You become an ambassador of growth and fruit bearing. For this analogy, truth. So our garden, formerly the Garden of Eden, had fallen into a state of decay, overgrown with thorns and the seeds and the lies of the enemy. So the chief gardener has given us the necessary tools and the seeds. That's the gospel. So we have the tools we need to get to work. He already paid for the garden. So we go out of the embassy and we get to work. We take the truth. We start weeding the garden, right? We say with the Great Commission, take the gospel into the world. We plant the good seeds. We plant the truth and dig out the bad ones. The opposite of the truth is a lie. Jesus called Satan the father of all lies. John 8:44, you belong to your father, the devil. You want to carry out your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth. There is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his native language, for he is a liar and the father of lies. So you think biblically, Satan's had all this time to study us and examine our thought. He's real slick on how to do things and make people think you're not there. My truth is just another version of a Satan's lie. We live in a pluralistic society that teaches that there's many truths and each person has their own. That's a lie from the pit of hell, yet it succeeded tremendously in destroying humanity. Prisons, brothels, abortion clinics, casinos, bars. There are so many things all over our communities that would never even be tolerated for a second when God's walk with man began, and now they're everywhere because people have their own truth. They don't want the truth. And since God only is the only one who holds truth, only his truth can set us free, not my truth. My truth can't set you free. John 8:32 says, and you shall know the truth and it shall make you free. So many churches put that on their literature and have it as their saying. A lot of churches have one saying out in the lobby they want to go as their motto. And they're all great. There's so many good ones. My favorite's be still and know I am God. But this is a good one. And you shall know the truth and the truth shall make you free. Christ is the truth. But you know who has the hardest time with this concept of my truth? Because I've talked to these guys. Convicts, murderers, and bank robbers. I've been in the pen with these guys talking about the lives they led when they were led astray. And a lot of them say the same thing without even knowing other guys said it. They said, if we would have had more Bibles in school, we wouldn't need so many in prison. I'm like, amen, brother, I know. I mean, I know that. And we all know that. Satan said, get the Bibles out of schools. And we do these things, try to get Bibles in prisons. And they say, if we had them in the schools, we wouldn't need them here because I wouldn't be here. Yeah, I know that. Those guys really are vocal about that too. They were in prison because they were deceived in believing Satan's lies or their own truths. Well, it's okay. I need money for my family. I can rob somebody. I can kill this person. He's moving in on my territory. Even though I sell drugs, I'm just trying to feed my family. This is all versions of my truth. My truth. Well, your truth is Satan's truth. Satan's method has always been to corrupt and attack the church. First, because he knows if he can bring down the church, this is going to be a little complex. I initially cut this entire section out of the sermon because I thought it was too long, but I left it in because I feel like I have to talk about it. Satan knows if he can bring down the church, truth will be completely absent from the world, and the entire globe can be one big penitentiary, right? No more embassies. No visiting representing your homeland here. Embassies are gone. If you can take down the church and get that out of there. So the beginning of the absence of truth. I wrote that on there. I'm going to try to read this pretty quick to get through. I just wanted to give you an idea of when I talk about how Satan works against truth and he causes division and he comes into churches and you start doing division and causing division by pettiness, by little petty things in religions. You're not like us. You don't do this. This is where all the different denominations come from. Baptists believe you just got to be baptized. That's why they're called Baptists. They're heavy theme on baptism. Methodists are called Methodists because of the methodology they employ in their worship. Catholics were the first church, started by the Roman Empire, who crucified Christ. Catholic meant universal. Protestant comes from the word protest, because they're protesting the Catholics. If you are a Protestant, you are the opposite of a Catholic. And they still kill each other. And so Satan starts this. You get in the church. You find out what's different about people. Don't worry about what God says about coming together on the birth of Christ and forgiveness of sins. Let's focus on what's wrong with these people. Let's focus on what's wrong with these other Christians so we can get rid of them. Don't worry about the Jesus stuff. We'll get to that. He's always going to be there. We got to kill these people. They're heretics. That's what Satan does. That's how he enters the church. Secularism was brought about by the enemy as a result of attacking the church with false truths. For those who don't know, secularism is where the governing body of a state or a society does so with no influence or recognition of religious beliefs. And there was a time when mankind revered God and sought to spread his truth to everyone. So what happened? Okay, this is the part I cut out that I'm going to put in. I'll go through this quick. The enemy came into the church and started dispensing our own individual truths so intensely that men were willing to kill for it, Christian men. So their drive to kill came from an addiction to lies. Lies that they believed were truths exclusively to them. The lies of the enemy were, and still are, so powerful that they overlooked the chief rule of loving everyone, which I just said. Satan came into the church and created lines of division. People became obsessed with legalism, following man-made rules, and they persecuted each other instead of meeting on the centrality of God's truth. Back in the 15th and 16th centuries, Christians were going to war with each other on a regular basis. The wars in the 15th and 16th century were Christians killing Christians. There were about 30 wars going on at that time in the 15th and 16th century. And Anglicans were fighting the Catholics, Lutherans were fighting Calvinists. They all hated the Anabaptists, and they were easy to kill because they didn't fight back because they thought it was wrong. So it was a target-rich environment. The biggest and most known war of that time was called the 30 Years' War, and several nations were involved in this. Remember, this is Satan attacking truth, God's truth. You go in the middle of God's truth, you disrupt these people, the church, and get people to kill each other. And most of it was fought in Germany between 1618 and 1648. As the population of Germany was reduced by about 30%, just based on this one war. Christians killing each other. It got so bad that all the kings and the leaders in the area had to get together and say, hey, our entire populations are being killed. Who? Christians. Who's killing them? Christians. Which ones? They got their own tribes, flying the name of Christ. This is how powerful the devil's lies are when we ignore the truth of Christ, the truth of God. They lost so much human life that they had to do something, so they made a law called the Peace of Westphalia. It's a declaration. And the rule of killing anyone for religious reasons was wiped out. Wiped out. Can't do that anymore. People still skirmished. There was still stuff that happened. But it was against the law. Now here's where things get weird. Remember, we have the church that loves Jesus, church that loves Christ, loves peace. Satan comes into the church. People start believing their own truths. Well, I believe that you need to be baptized as an infant. Well, you're a heretic. I'm going to kill you. Because that ain't what the Bible said. This is literally, Satan comes into the church. That's a pretty powerful division. They start believing their own truths. That's my truth. Start killing each other. When they make it illegal and it stops, no one can kill each other. Everybody stop. It's against the law now. This brings in tolerance. Brings in, not intolerance, brings in to the church tolerance. Now the church has to be tolerant. Stick with me here. I'm not going weird on you. Tolerance is good, but devaluing the truth is not. Tolerance is good, but devaluing the truth is not. By removing the concept of any specific religion, the government would now claim to be neutral. We'll tolerate all beliefs. So this concept of recognizing multiple truths and having your own truth is what caused the current explosion of individual truths, people having their own truths, or more accurately, biblically speaking, lies. I know what you're saying. Hang on, Pastor. Are you suggesting that if we were still allowed to kill other Christians, we'd be better off? No, I am not. I am absolutely not suggesting that or anything like it. I'm not suggesting we should bring harm to any Christian that disagrees with us. That is not what I'm saying. What I am saying is this. If Christians had been observing the one and only truth in Christ in the first place, if Christians didn't allow pettiness and going against God's truth of love, forgiveness, and unity into the church in the first place, none of those wars and killing ever would have happened. We would have tolerance and we would have Christ at the center of our governing body. If they just obeyed the central truth. The government has blown the trumpet of what they call tolerance so loudly now that we've become compliant with corruption. We don't value the truth. No, I don't mean us personally. No longer just tolerating sin, but endorsing it. And that Christians, they let the devil in, and it started. And once that train gets rolling, that's what he counted on. How do you keep that train rolling? You devalue truth and you stay away from it. Well, personally, we don't have to do that. By believing my truth, the Christians murdered their own way right into having a secular government. Isn't it interesting how Satan works? He can get the entire church to kill each other until they get into a government where he's removed because of it. Wow, now that is clever. And that's what happens when a society turns its back on truth. We know better. We know better. How do we treat people that don't have the truth? Well, we don't go to war and cut their heads off. We don't persecute them. I don't go down to a church of a different denomination and vandalize them and look for the pastor so I can get sideways with him. We don't do that. That's not the truth. That's not the truth. Satan wants us to be focused on that truth. We're going into the new year of Christ, with Christ's truth. We're summing up everything we talked about this year. That's why I picked truth. Because the enemy distracted them from the most important truth of all, the truth of Christ, to the point where they're so deceived that killing others for them was a viable option. That's sad. Last week we discussed the dangers of legalism, in that message. This is seeing it in its most aggressive form. And Jesus told the Pharisees, you filter out gnats and swallow up camels. We talked about the point about that before. Because he'd put a cloth over their wine so gnats couldn't get in it, so it wouldn't be gross and nasty. But he says you filter out gnats, but you swallow up big, nasty, dirty camels. In other words, you worry about these little meticulous things. But the whole truth, you don't even pay attention to. You want to nitpick over little things. You filter out gnats and swallow up camels. That's what gets wars going. That's what gets people turning their back on truth. This is what the early Christians did. They let their own small truths blind them to the larger truth of Christ. John 18:37-38 is when Pilate's talking to Jesus. This was just a couple months ago. I did the Pilate sermon. You're a king then, Pilate said. Jesus answered, you say that I'm a king. In fact, the reason I was born and came into this world is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me. What is truth? Retorted Pilate. With this, he went out again to the Jews gathered there and said, I find no basis for a charge against him. Pilate asked the most important question in history and didn't wait for the answer. He had truth standing right in front of him, though. He knew it. He could feel it. Said he found no guilt in him. You ever noticed God's truth saves people, rescues people, causes people to reunite in tears of love and joy? And alternative truths, man's truths, lies perpetuate wars, plagues, disease, and death. Even in churches, they did that, especially in churches. God's central main truth is Jesus Christ, and Jesus' main truth is love and forgiveness. Man's truth is, those people are evil, let's get them. That's man's truth. That's a man-invented truth. That's not the Christ truth. Let's get them. Man's truth is sex is recreational. It can be approached as my truth. Whoever I want, whoever I want to be with. That's my truth. All right. And in the meantime, we get syphilis, AIDS, gonorrhea, divorce, abortion, suicides, murders, and domestic violence. Your truth's working out great. Not so much. I said God knows we like sex. Everything the human being has a design for, God has created a way to accomplish it, a way to meet the need. Satan says, you don't need to do all that. You got your own truth. You got your truth. The only thing worse than thinking something's your truth is when you start thinking, this is God's truth. That's usually when it's Satan's truth, when it first starts out as your truth. Everything gone wrong in the name of wanting our own truth. True, I'm telling you, truth matters. And this is such an important topic. There isn't something you're going to walk out of the parking lot today and say, that one line was great, I'm going to take it with me all year. It's just the topic of truth. When you establish a relationship with Christ, your heart starts to develop a radar system. It does. You develop a radar system. I see this with new Christians. I want to tell you something. I used to, and anybody games in here, I used to play this game called Ace Combat. And it's a video game. And I love this game. And in the game on my radar screen, because it looks like the cockpit of a fighter jet, there's a radar and there's blips on the radar. There's blue blips and there's red blips. I can trust the blue blips. They're my allies. They're the ones who are on my side. They're the ones who were there. They're the truth. They're the real truth. These are my allies. The red blips are my enemies. They blipped red. I can trust and rely on the blue ones, but the red ones want to kill me. And the weird thing is the red ones are shaped exactly like the blue ones. They're shaped exactly the same. They look just like them. When I trusted the real truth, God's truth, Jesus Christ, many of the blue blips, I realized some of them were known as my truths. And guess what? They turned red. Oh, I didn't know you were hiding there. They turned into red blips. And they became exposed for what they really are. Lies. Things I thought were truths when I got to know God and God's truth. I had to engage. I had to seek and destroy the lies and make sure that only the truth was permitted on my radar. Only blue blips. Once I knew Christ, he exposed the ones hiding behind the blue. The powers and principalities of this world in the air and the heavenly realms all appear blue to the person who seeks comfort and constant affirmation to their sins. But the moment the relationship with Christ starts, a lot of those blue blips, formerly perceived truths, start turning red. But, I mean, it's really comical to dismiss the truth of the spiritual realm that teaches us about these truths, because we are sustained by the spiritual realm. It influences our thoughts, our actions. The skeptical view of God, I never get. To me, that's like that's like the car saying there's no such thing as gasoline. No, you need it. You got to have it. It doesn't exist. Yes, it does. What is truth? Listen, if you don't forget anything, if you remember anything today, remember this. Truth is the standard by which reality is measured. Truth is the standard by which reality is measured. Truth is God's view on every topic. That's what truth is. Truth is God's view on every topic. That's why there's only one truth for every question. There's no versions of the truth. You hear people say, what's your version of the truth? Versions of the truth are adopted by humans to comfort them in their sin. If the Bible says that something is a sin and you enjoy doing it, you can't just call it your truth and it makes it okay. Well, that's my truth, it's okay. No, it's not. There's only one truth. Pastor, I'm new to all this. I got to ask you, how do we know that the truth of Jesus is the right truth? And why are you using a southern accent all of a sudden? I don't know why I do that sometimes. We know that Jesus is the truth because we can test it. Because he invites us to. God invites us to test it. Malachi 3:10. Now he's talking about tithing here. This could apply to any topic in the Bible. Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse. This is God. that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out as much blessing that there will be no room to store it. Test me in this. That is a statement about the character of God directly from the mouth of God. Test me on this. Don't believe me? Let me show you. Don't believe me? Just watch. Come on. Yep. That's what he's saying to him. Test me. This is a great verse for people who don't tithe too. On a side note, because teaches money's like manure. Spread it around, things grow. Stack it up and it just stinks. Test me in this is a statement outlining God's character. Of all the religious beliefs in the world that war and kill each other because of their belief, there is only one, Jesus, who teaches that observing truth requires that we not do that. If we're going to observe truth and live by it, we don't go out and seek to hunt down, kill, hang, lynch, vandalize, and do that, because that's the opposite of spreading the love. That is not the truth. I'm not talking about situations where you have to defend your family, defend your country, fight for Israel, these things. That's a different topic altogether. Our core laws, the 10 Commandments, this is the other thing about truth. They work out, and I said this when I preached on them, I think 2 years ago. The 10 Commandments are like a math problem. Even if you're not a Christian, just go down each commandment and then work it out like it's a math problem. And what I mean by that is this. What if every person lived by each one of these? What would the world be like? It would be paradise on earth. It would be heaven. If every person just did something just as simple as followed the 10 Commandments, every person, it would be a utopia. I mean, think about that. So if you work it out that way, wow, isn't it weird? If we did everything the way God said, we'd live in paradise? Well, go figure. It's not, yeah, test me on this. Look, there's the rules. Add it up. Figure it out for yourself. The truth. Our core laws, they work out just like a math problem. We obey them all, and that's how I know. Those are the reasons I know. How do you know it's true? Well, he said test me on it. I have, and life is good. I'm in the embassy, and if they take over the embassy here in this foreign land and kill me, I'm going back home. Because I stayed loyal to the embassy of my homeland, the kingdom. I'm going to die. These people outside the embassy may want to get me. I may die inside the embassy, but I'm going home. They're not going to burn me and throw me in a ditch outside the embassy and outside of my home. Our mission is to be ambassadors in this foreign land, to bring healing through truth. And many will resist on the outside of the embassy because, like I said, the human heart is, I know the Bible says it's desperately wicked. It is. But I always say it's addicted to experience hunting and hostile. The sunlight. And I also know we go into dark places. Everybody in here has been someplace you shouldn't be. I have. I've been in places I shouldn't be. I've had people call me in the dressing room before when I'm drinking whiskey talking about Jesus. They go, Drew, you know, you're a walking contradiction. You're cussing, drinking, holding whiskey, you're drunk, you're talking about Jesus. Because I wouldn't let some band open for us because they had some stupid satanic name or something. I'm like, nope. They're like, oh, well, Mr. Billy Graham, where should we tell him to go? And you know, I'm like, yeah, well, you know, I'm not doing this anti-God stuff. You know, I may be a jerk, but no, I'm not going to cross that line because I'm all good. Look, idiot. But the point is, I have ministered to people even in those days. You have a place to do that. I've told this story before. Don't worry about it. When you can do it, do it. That's truth. That's spreading the truth. People say, is God everywhere? Yep, he's everywhere. Is he in crack houses and whorehouses and casinos? Is it God in there too? He sure is. Well then, how can a holy God be in such vile, sinful places? Because the answer is easy. The manure is affected by the sunlight. The sunlight is not affected by the manure. So you always have a chance to tell someone, even in a dark circumstance, or in a place maybe you shouldn't be, or you're just going by, and sometimes it's in a conversation with a person who's living in a dark place. There's always a time to give a little bit of truth. Take it out of your backpack as we go into 2025 with every action, every word you speak, thinking, is this supporting God's truth or compromising it? And we will be doing our part in the Great Commission if we just commit to do that. Your life gets better. Some of your own truths, some of your blue blips on your radar may actually turn red too. But on the upside, a lot of red blips may hear your truth and turn blue on your radar screen. And that's what we've got to look forward to. And I pray to God we all take more truth with us into 2025. Because not only does it do us good, not only is it right by Christ, but it helps this dark world. All right.